Hello, everybody. This is Derek Smith. I want to welcome you to another Blue Table Talk. This time I have a private investigator out of Georgia, a friend of mine. His name is Jack Williams, and we're going to talk a lot about his profession and what he's done as a private investigator. Jack, what do you want me to call you? Want me to call you just Jack or JR or what during the interview?
Dude, no, I'm teasing. Jack is great. Jack is great. Thank you.
And before we came on,
and hi, everybody.
I was checking out Jack's dog and things like that. I'm going to let Jack introduce him. There's the baby. I say baby. It's 14 months old. I think you said 14 months, 19 months?
About 19 months, 17, 18
but
months. But
also about like 90 pounds already. So
yeah.
All right. Everybody,
she's helpful when she's driving around as my co-pilot. Sometimes I go places where I need that extra little bit of intimidation.
And that'll work for it. That's what I want. Yeah. I have a little dog, but I want a big dog. You know, I used to have 2 cane corsos, Jack. I want to get 2 more.
Oh, well, yeah.
It was pretty intimidating, me being 275, walking down the street with two big dogs like that. And guess what their names were?
Now, Jack, were you in the collections business back then? It would seem natural to be in the collections business with the 2 big cane corsos.
And you know
the chain collars.
They were called. I had a black one called Ninja and a brown one called Samurai.
Nice.
So they're Ninja and Samurai. I spent $2,000 getting them both trained because you're supposed to train them on the left. I had one trained on the left and the right, and I walked down the street. They were trained by voice command and hand command. So it's the coolest thing to have 150-pound dogs with spike collars around named Ninja and Samurai.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right, man. So we're going to get started. Go ahead and tell everybody who you are and what you do for a living.
Okay. My name's Jack Williams. I'm out of Alpharetta, Georgia, which is kind of a suburb of Atlanta outside of what we call the perimeter around here. There's a big loop around Atlanta made up of, expressways and so forth. And inside the loop is, in the perimeter. Outside of that is OTP out of the perimeter. And I've been working as a PI or a licensed PI for nearly 2 years now, as of February. And previous to that, I did about a year of process service, just getting back into it. Originally, I had my older brother, who's 16 years my elder, had me running around chasing people in Rochester, New York for process service back in my teens. And now I'm in my 50s. But as my children have gotten older and I've had more free time to get out and about, I've been able to pursue another one of my dream jobs, that being, private investigator. And kind of the way of getting my foot into the door of doing that was through doing process service, which sometimes uses some of the same skills. So I depend a lot on preparation, so that, let's say if I'm doing a process service run and I've got 6 or 7 papers, I mean, obviously you need to set them up geographically to know where you're going to drive to save gasoline and all those other sorts of issues. But also from a confrontation standpoint or a risk standpoint, we also need to analyze our files to figure out exactly, at least the summons and complaint first few pages to figure out what the activity is that's driving this legal issue. Like if somebody's getting sued for several $1 million, or they're losing custody of their children, or they're about to find out that they're about to be divorced, these are good things to know up front so that, you can affect your delivery and process service completion like as quickly and efficiently as possible without having to get involved in any violence.
Well, Jack, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's the first time I've heard somebody talk about that, and the intelligence that you put into it beforehand to know what you're dealing with. Now, I teach a processor course, and that's one of my modules is on that. You need to understand your adversary, I guess you say, but you need to understand what you're running up against, because you don't want to run up against something and you have a hostile person who wants to shoot the messenger, let's say. One thing about process serving people don't understand is that we're not there to hinder somebody. We're there to actually help you. We're there to tell you, hey, there's a process, there's a court case coming, and I'm letting you know about it so you can get prepared or whatever. I want you to be there.
I'm really your friend.
Yeah, and it's kind of what it is. We're letting you know that you have a problem you have to deal with. So I'm glad you
have a really big problem.
Especially if a $7 million problem, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what got you into this field in the first? Well, you said that this was a long time dream. So what kind of brought you into it at this point in your life to start actually pursuing this?
Well, let's see. Like I got out of college with a degree in graphic design and basically Adobe Photoshop, stuff like that, and Russian and Latin American foreign policy as a sub minor or whatever, and then promptly got swept up in the internet craze where I did a lot of web development and website design and all that sort of thing. And then I was with this company called Enron that blew up in was it 2000 or 2001 down at Tehachapi, California, and that job evaporated. So I got into real estate via being a title rep, and then I got into mortgage, and then had a brokerage for a while, and then got into doing some exotic lending, which had to do with everything from trying to refinance ships or set up commodity deals or refinance, entire property groups at a time, or different things like that, or just exotic lending programs. Like sometimes people would be able to put up stock in lieu of equity in order to get a particular business deal or whatever. Some of these always ended up at the table, like at the signing table, and in order for it to move any further, like someone at the table would be compelled to do some type of felonious activity. This is in California, in between 2003 and 2008, and kind of is why a lot of that crashed, and I started to, see a need to be able to run, at that point, all I could use was OSINT type of technologies, open source intelligence. I don't even think they called it that at that point, but the people coming to a table claiming that they're signatories to be able to sign for refinance of a cargo ship, or sell a bunch of gold, or transfer property, or transfer assets, or do any of those sorts of things, oftentimes had nothing to do with it, or weren't signatory at all, or whatever. So that kind of got my bug started, with a bug in my head about, hey, I want to be able to have access to non-public databases specifically, so that I can do better homework on doing business deals. And then, we had kids. My wife has a really great job, so I've basically been holding the ladder for her to climb it over the last 10, 12, 13, 14 years. And then a couple of years ago, as my kids got into latter parts of middle school and high school, then I've been able to devote my time to first of all, going through the schooling, which had to do in the state of Georgia, you got to take a security officer course, and then an armed security course, and then a private investigator course. And all those basically add up to around 110 hours, most of which can be done in independent study, so they say. I did about two years ago, and in the state of Georgia, after you've been working for someone else for 2 years, you can open your own agency if you want to, and I have that option, but this also feeds into like a career track, in that I've only been doing this for 2 years, but the guy that gave me a shot at doing it has been doing it for 30 years. So does it make sense for me to stay here and to learn more, and to have a solid mentor who knows the area and is a native to this area, as opposed to me, who, I'm just a damned Yankee down here. So,
and I know, I mean, he has clients.
So it's been clientele, and I do a fair amount of bringing in new clients too. So it's really been a pleasure to learn the business.
Well, you can do what you want to do without all the overhead of trying to start your own company right now. Maybe that's something you want to do down the line, but if you're happy doing it with someone else, that's a good thing. I mean, I love the journey, because I love the way you transition from something where you saw the use for private investigators or a need for process servers, and you were able to transition that into, okay, this is the business I want to be in. Because that's interesting. I had never heard about, everybody knows about the mortgage market, but I didn't know how to work with gold and ships and all these other commodities that you can do this with. And it was interesting you said about the database, because we do have access to information that a lot of people can't just get their hands on, and the intelligence that you talked about. You can do a lot with open source, but there's a lot of things we need. You know,
Absolutely.
what I miss as a PI is that I used to have NCIC and I used to have law enforcement databases that I don't have access to anymore.
Oh, I'd like that.
Yeah.
I'd like a piece of that.
But we don't have those anymore. So
I'd be in trouble if I had access to it right now, though.
But they know, you know, and I work for the IRS. It's like checking your taxes. I can't do that, you know. But even with that, being a federal agent for years, I had to relearn how to be an investigator as far as databases and all that, because I just go to NCIC and put it in and find everything I want. I had to learn how PIs do it. So that was interesting, and getting access to the right stuff. And even when you have the right stuff, you know, probably, Jack, that some of those databases aren't worth anything at all. You know, you got to find the right.
Like a lot of us use TLOX, which is a TransUnion product.
Now I use IRB Focus, which also goes through TransUnion. I was going to go to TransUnion, and then like, well, when I call TransUnion, like IRB Focus is one of our products. I'm like, okay, I use IRB Focus. It's not very expensive, and it gets me pretty much what I need. Sometimes I have to cross-reference it with a couple of them, but you know, I'm trying to get it down to one or two because of the expense, of course. You know. So
the best one I ever saw was when I was at Bank of America as a loan officer during that journey there, and they had access to Fidelity National Financial's database, and we had access to all kinds of unbelievable demographics. And this is in 2002, 2003, things that are just coming to like the public awareness that, oh my gosh, they know that about me, was already in a database that I could look up basically on anybody. I was serving as a loan officer, and we were told to market using this software. So I could go into Fidelity and say, I want to market to males between the ages of 35 and 50 who make over $1.5 million a year, or one race or another, one religion or another, number of kids, education level, state of birth, all kinds of stuff like that. So you could fine tune your marketing material to get to the person that you really wanted to have their attention.
And I guess
so in the same way, we use it to chase people now, and that's the part of. I always tell people I love chasing people, but that's the part that is intellectually stimulating.
Well, I was going to ask you. I mean, that sounds like skip tracing, and if you had to do an asset search, you had all the information for asset search, for divorces and things like that. And I was going to ask you that because even though you only have 2 years experience as a PI, I can tell speaking to you that you have a lot more experience that's directly related to what you do. So from doing your mortgage work and all that other work you did, I guess all that tied right into what you're learning and doing as a PI, huh?
Yeah, we're just people.
Inquisitive minds,
Yeah.
And folks don't know this, but I know you from the martial art aspect, and I know that you're an intellectual person, a thinking person, critical thinker. So I know this job is probably great for you.
Takes one to know one, bro.
It works with this job, right? To be a critical thinker.
Yeah.
So what kind of things are you working on now? What next?
I've had some interesting stuff. Recently, I got sent into like the deepest, darkest parts of Atlanta. No street lights in some places and dirt roads down in the middle of the city to do real estate surveys, basically to analyze neighborhoods and to be able to give a statement on their condition, provide photography of that. And I don't know where it goes or what it's for, but that's just something sometimes we get hired for.
So you're full service. Do you specialize in anything like civil or criminal, or you guys will take on like full service PI work?
We're full service. We do a fair amount of what I call fidelity verification services.
Yeah. I like that word. I might have to steal that one.
You're welcome to. It's a much nicer way of stating things. A lot of the surveillance that I have to do has to do with family court activity. A lot of child abuse and or child custody surveillance where people may or may not be violating the conditions of custody. Some of that involves electronic surveillance. And
do you do some of that yourself? Are you trained in electronic?
I do.
Okay, cool.
Somewhat. I've had, this is only my most recent dream job. I've had some others too.
Okay.
But
that we won't mention.
but yeah, I don't know. Not really. Not really. But my dad was was like a really senior ham radio enthusiast as I was growing up. We had all kinds of really big towers up to 20-meter antenna and stuff. It was just like huge. And then when later on, he had the big farm where we were doing moon bounce and satellite operations with amateur radio stuff. So I've always had a kind of an in with communications devices and this general understanding of how those sort of things happen. And now in this area that I'm operating in, there's a fair amount of cheating and infidelity going on. So there's a lot of surveillance having to do with those issues, and some of that can be mobile surveillance. I mean, not mobile. Well, of course, it might be mobile or stationary. What I meant to be saying by that is electronic surveillance, dependent upon the laws and whether it's wiretapping laws or eavesdropping laws or whatever your state or local jurisdiction might call that. For instance, like if the husband pays for the car and he thinks his wife is cheating on him, then sure, he can bug her vehicle and we can track its every move. But if she's already moved out, she pays for her own vehicle, and he puts a bug on her car, then he's guilty of a felony.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I get a lot of customers. I get a lot of clients who want me to bug their person, put a GPS on, put a listening device on their telephone. That's against the law. I can go to prison for that.
You say to them, well, you better buy them a new car and make them feel that everything's great.
A lot of people.
And I'm sure we can bug that.
That is called wiretapping. A lot of people doing illegal wiretapping. Now there are some states where only one party needs to consent, but you got to be very careful of that. And a lot of those folks don't. Even with a husband and wife who's still married in the same house, if that person primarily uses a car, I can't do that to her car. So it's something that people need to think about, know when you're trying to hire these folks. How big is Alpharetta as far as population approximately?
Oh, probably a couple 100,000.
So even with a couple 100,000, you still get plenty of PI work down there, huh?
I can always use some more, but I also don't like to work too hard as well. I like to set things up intelligently, bang it all out. Like in the case of process service, like sometimes I don't know how or why. I just get this mojo that tells me that, okay, now's the time, and I get them all done. I don't know how it happens. Other times, if I go out and it doesn't feel right to me, I'm unsuccessful. I'm so you can kind of slightly superstitious about it.
I was gonna say you can intuitively tell. Now, what about COVID-19? How's it affected your business as far as processor and
it's awesome. It's awesome because a lot of corporations are closed due to COVID-19.
So business is
down. If I get a process service order to let's say it's a certain address, I know that building is shut, and the 30 firms that might be in that building are all working remotely. So as soon as I see those orders comes in, I know it's a double order, which is a beautiful thing, because we get paid by the location, not by the entity. So if this company's closed, let's say it's a Fortune 100 company getting sued by a former employee for workplace discrimination or something like that, they choose the corporate headquarters as the place to be served. And that may have been the correct place to serve them last year or 2 years ago. But now most of the corporations are using registered agencies. And, the corporation itself, the doors of the headquarters are shuttered and the lights are off. And the only people there are IT boffins in the back room, and they don't answer the door.
Yeah, they're not.
So as soon as those orders come in, I know it's a double order. And if it's a double same day rush, then I'm very happy.
So you can make a couple $100 just off that one. Now I know. Speaking of that, you guys, you get a pretty amount. I don't want to talk about how much you pay, but you guys do pretty well down there as far as a lot of PIs worry about charging $50 an hour or $80 an hour. I charge $100 an hour, but I know in some place, New York, I know people charging $250, and I know that.
I'm new, and I can get $95 an hour.
Yeah. So folks, don't be afraid. If a lawyer can charge $400 and we are getting the information for the lawyer, it's okay for us to charge $100. And as he said, 2 years in, he's charging that. So think about the guy. I'm an ex-Fed, and you already know that. I might be undercutting myself with $100.
I think you are.
You told me that before. I got to rethink.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at the area and what people are getting, but sometimes, and you know that, Jack, sometimes you just got to charge what you're worth. And then that's
Right. And you also, sometimes you need to charge what the person can pay.
Yeah.
Sometimes they, might not be able to pay as much as you want to charge them, but it might be the right thing to do.
Yeah, and I've done that.
So every once in a while, one of those comes out.
Yeah. Well, lawyers have
It's a standard PI story where you're at your desk with your head in your hands, and the femme fatale comes in and says she has no money, but she needs you to investigate her husband. I'm just teasing. It's like from an old 1940s movie.
Yeah.
Who am I thinking of? Mike Hammer. I'm thinking of Mike Hammer.
Those Mike Hammer type things. I was going to say now in who's that woman that's doing it now on Marvel? Joan somebody, I forgot. But most of her cases come that way. She's sitting at the desk with nothing to do, and somebody walks in and give it to her.
That's the old. It's an old cliche.
Yep. And you might earn the money some other way. But anyway,
I never knew I'd be in love and almost die with the same case, but today it happened. Blah, 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 blah.
Yep. And I guess just like lawyers do pro bono, sometimes I don't do pro bono, but I will lower my rate and help. I just did a case with an Air Force guy. He was a two-striper, didn't have a lot of money. His wife was cheating on him, living with another guy and all that. I lowered the price. I gave him the military discount, and lowered the price. Now, you might get some, that's why I guess some people on their website, and I do it now, they put how much they make an hour. I talk to some who don't put how much they make because it depends on the client and what kind of work that client wants them to do. And that's how they adjust their prices accordingly.
I mean, some of it's risky too. I mean, some of it is worthy of combat pay.
Yeah,
truly.
You're right. Even if it's not, well, like you said, you mentioned the neighborhood. Some of the neighborhoods you have to go in to do process service or surveillance could be a danger to us sitting in the car, or going to knock on that door. So we have to take that into consideration. High risk serves sometimes.
Generally, like if I come into a neighborhood where I notice spotters, I don't avoid their eyes at all. I generally will look at them and nod at them and just let them know that, I'm not with their enemy. So to speak.
Well, I was going to say, do they ever think you the police or anything like that?
There was one time where I was, invariably around here, it seems like somehow certain types of people get these lower back basement condos, like on the back of, let's say, like a 5-floor condo development. And there's like these apartments that face the back, like toward the pond or whatever. And somehow the condo management people always put the criminals down in those apartments. But anyways, I don't know. They must be the cheapest apartments.
I was going to say that's the one where you don't have your credit and everything. We just let you have it as long as you pay month by month.
So one of my early process serves a couple of years ago, getting back into it, was for a lady who was serving as like registered agent for a whole bunch of fraudulent roofing and siding corporations. It all came back to this one lady. And I went looking online about her, and she advertised herself as being a trainer of pit bulls as well. Had lots of pictures of herself with really large, like fighter looking pit bulls. These weren't being born to be house dogs, And so I went to go serve her and came into one of these complexes, which some of them, are basically one way in, one way out. And sometimes I'll just have my mojo will go off again, or my spider sense, or in the Japanese, they call it your harage, your gut. And it tells me sometimes when things are wrong. And so as soon as it went off, I heard these guys doing the whoop whoop and 5-0 as I drove in there. So I had to go back. Maybe I drive a big black GMC. Kind of looks like the Secret Service showed up, but there's only one of me, But anyways, so I'm driving way back in there, and I notice that the guys are letting everybody know that I'm coming in. So I get to the one building that I was supposed to go find this lady at. She's in the downstairs apartment, like I was speaking about. So I go down there. There's nobody there. And as I came back up and was walking out, the whole set is like waiting there for me to come back up. And these dudes are like, "What's up?" And I said, "I'm not here for you today, fellas." And they all just started laughing, and we all fist bumped. And They said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm looking for this lady who lives downstairs. You know this lady, the pit bull lady?" And they're like, "Yeah, we know her, man. She moved across the street, and she's over there." That they'd said some mean things about her. They didn't like her, and so they told me where she was at.
Well, good
But
thing.
I was unarmed at that point, and I was just kind of like, I knew for sure that those guys were armed,
Yeah.
and so I just kind of had to get out of it by making them laugh.
But your intel saved you because you knew she was the pit bull lady. If you just said something different, who knows how it would have turned out,
Maybe so.
Now, how do people find people like that? How do people find the one woman who handles all the fraudulent plumbers and things like that? Is there a directory for fraudulent RAs?
I think she, from what I looked into it, she was basically representing her entire extended family.
Oh, okay.
In a whole bunch of revolving, schemes involving, come out and do a half day's work and then charge for 3 days work and supplies and then never coming back sort of operations.
Was it one of those gypsy type that travel around the country? Every year I have them come from all over the country here out in Maryland to do roofing during the summer. They knock on your door and give you the rates and all that. We have a lot of those.
Well, generally, when the feds are talking about the gypsies, they're speaking about Romanian people. Because actually, those are organized families
who travel and do that kind of stuff.
They're known to do that in the summer times. But this family was from down south of the border.
Oh, okay. So since we know that,
same MO though.
Yeah. So speaking of that, what's the strangest? I haven't asked anybody this yet. What's the strangest or most interesting case you've had so far?
I have to figure out how not to violate international law.
Well, that's what I say without giving anything away. What type of thing was it?
One time I was helping a guy from New York who was trying to find a lady from China who had married him and then basically eloped to outer Mexico, to the deserts of Mexico, to be a shamaness.
Are you kidding?
No.
Did you have to go and travel? Did you travel to find him?
I did. It was amazing. And one of the neatest things about, Derek, you and I know about the shinobi community or the ninjutsu community around the world. I was able to get in touch with the local Bujinkan down there, and the chief sensei there basically took me under his wing. He took me all around Mexico City, which is a pretty scary place in some places, and we basically had a really nice time getting to know one another and doing some business at the same time.
So see, having this ninjutsu network can come in handy. I know you've traveled all around the world doing this. And not to mention, when you say shaman, the first thing I think about, I know you're into the more spiritual and esoteric aspects of it. So you understood her world when you talk about she became a shamanist. You understand what.
Yeah, and it feeds into later. So my boss here in the U.S. knew I was going down there to try and find this lady, and he sent me a reference to a guy who said that he could do private intelligence and find people in Mexico. Of course, in Mexico City, I think it's 29 million people or something like that. So that's, needle in a haystack is not or maybe is the right word. Grain of sand on a beach, maybe. But so anyways, I bought intelligence from this guy. And he gave me a street address and said that his operative was there and had confirmed that the people I was looking for were there and all that. And as it turned out, the information was completely false. I had just leased for several $100s.
Was this guy really there?
But he was not. This guy was operating out of Costa Rica.
Oh, so it wasn't okay. So it was a total fraud.
And I won't mention his name at all. But if somebody wants to contact me directly, if they're going to have any business down there, I might be able to help them with who not to talk to.
Yeah, save your money.
Either in Costa Rica or Mexico. But so like this guy sent me into one of the worst, scariest favelas in Mexico City, looking for a street that didn't exist. He picked a neighborhood that did exist, but then made up the name of a street from street names in Madrid, Spain, which I later, did some research and found out how he made this name up. But basically, so we get sent into this crazy neighborhood. One of them where they, in fact, did the Man on Fire with Denzel Washington, where you see him going into those neighborhoods that are just like endless, and there's a smog, and it's these homes built out of corrugated stuff or whatever. This endless dogs on the roof, diapered babies sitting in puddles, stuff like that.
So you definitely stood out. You definitely stood out.
Yeah, I definitely stood out. And so anyways, that was unsuccessful. The intelligence was bad. I failed, basically. I had another 36 hours before my plane flight back. So I decided the only way to catch this lady was through open source. And so I created a Facebook profile and then approached her and stated I'd be coming to Mexico City and needed some energy healing.
See,
and seeing as she charges $260 an hour or something like that.
And we worried about how
US.
much we charge.
Yeah.
Wow.
And people pay it. People pay it down there. It's amazing. US. So she's making $260 an hour, US, tax-free, living in Mexico with no passport. Blah, blah, blah. It just goes on and on. The lady,
she doesn't even have to prove. We have to prove that we can solve the case. Yeah, she only have to prove that she can get it done. Because how do you prove that I made your love life come back to life? I don't know, whatever she's doing,
I don't know. I think it's an entry into an endless con. You probably have to pay her monthly to keep your energy clean or something like that. But anyways, I booked her for 3 hours, so she expected to show up and be paid close to $800. But she got a birthday card instead.
Wow. That is interesting, number one. Now, let me ask you this. How did you charge for, like, the runaround? Did you still charge your hourly rate while you're getting a runaround?
Absolutely.
By this guy?
I basically said I'd work for 8 hours a day.
Okay.
And I would be down there for, 6 days, 6 days.
So
airfare and hotel were paid by the client.
So you see, this could be pretty interesting and has its interesting moments in the travel time and all that. So it does get interesting.
Yeah, he needed it to be done. And he had received quotes from a bunch of different firms that, probably may have been able to get it done. But I came from a trusted referral source, and basically I got it done. So he was pretty happy.
So when you're operating down in Mexico and other places, how were you? Did you contact local police? Did you just go do your thing and get out of there, or did you? How'd you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So speaking of that, do you in Georgia?
I mean, they definitely knew I was there.
Okay, so you do let me know. Okay, because let me say, I've done both ways. Sometimes I'm in and out. It depends on what I think is going to happen. Sometimes it's going to be sitting on the surveillance. I've been arrested. I haven't been arrested. I've been taken out of my car on surveillances before. So when I do a surveillance, sometimes I let them know,
Oh, if I'm doing a surveillance here in my home area, a lot of times it might be in nicer neighborhoods and so forth. So I definitely call the police if I'm going to be sitting on a house, because people notice and they're fiercely protective of their neighborhoods around here. And in Georgia, many people are armed, so it's a good idea to
you're right about that.
to grease the wheels a little bit.
Now down there, do you guys carry? I know you have credentials. Do you carry badges down there?
We can if we want to. I haven't purchased one yet because I want to have a nice one.
Well, and I was just wondering how often people actually ask to see your credentials, or do you pretty much talk your way?
I laugh at them. I'm like, no, I'm not showing you shit.
All right. Because, as a federal agent, of course, I have my credentials, but I almost never had to use them. When I go in there and say, I'm special agent so-and-so, so most of them, they never ask me for my credentials, because the way you
the only people that are going to ask you for credentials are the cops.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
All right. So good. So you've been able to, so when you knock on somebody's door and say, hey, I'm here to ask you some questions, they don't say, hey, let me see a badge or your credentials or anything. They just let you in.
Sometimes people want to see some kind of identification when they've been served, because they think that they might be able to sue you for serving them or something like that. And basically I'll tell them a pseudonym and the name of my company. And then if they call asking for that name from my boss, he knows what it's about.
I assume Georgia's like most places. I mean, anybody can serve as long as you're not a party to the case.
True. Yeah, as long as I think you're over the age of 18.
Okay. I want to talk about something you just talked about.
But there are, professional process server associations.
Yes.
And so forth. And legitimately, if you want to be, let's say, a court appointed and completely 100% approved by everybody, a process server here in Georgia, then you need to go through the GAPS, GAPPS certification course and pass a state test.
Okay. See, we don't have that here in Maryland. So that's interesting to know.
But that's if I'm going to do paper that is generated in state. There's some funny laws about that. For the last 2 years, I've been doing it from only all the papers that came into our company from out of state.
So you have that many people from out of state that need to serve papers to folks down in Little Alfreda.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I cover like if and now I've added downtown Atlanta. But so that basically, like if you quartered like the compass, the city of Atlanta, starting in the city center, then I'm from like 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock down to the city center.
How does your company find most of his work? The processors and some advertisement, or just he's been around 30 years and everybody knows the guy to go to, or how do you guys find a lot of
there's steady clients, but we get a fairly good bunch of new business coming in through the Google advertising as well as the website, because we advertise as being able to locate and serve hard to find individuals.
And you say you bring a lot of clientele in yourself?
I work on it. I'm just always networking, and if I hear somebody complaining about one thing or the other, then if it's appropriate to say, hey, do you need a PI, or if you're afraid that your husband bugged your car, would you like me to sweep it for you?
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
That's interesting. How many PIs do you all have is it a large firm, or is it a smaller firm, or just the two of you guys, or what?
I'd say medium. There's probably like 30 people in the firm, but 3 of us are licensed PIs.
Okay, so that's pretty good.
With the majority being process servers.
Okay, so you got a bunch of processors. He is that much process serving business.
It's a lot.
That's pretty cool.
A lot. I mean, Atlanta's I don't know what, number 6 or 8th largest city in the country, and certainly a lot of lawsuits going on.
Yeah,
and we also have a fair number of Fortune 100 corporations.
Yeah,
and to get in with law firms that are handling the corporate work is really where is a real sweet spot for me, because they're very low risk, steady work.
Yep.
For instance, like I was talking about, serving registered agencies, which is just the best.
Yep.
So I love the corporate ones where it's like, oh, you got to serve, I don't know, Sprint or something. Like, cha-ching.
Yeah.
I know where that's going. You got to pay me twice for that one.
Yep.
I like that.
And
I don't mind COVID right now.
I tell my students, those onesies and twosies are nice for maritals and things like that. But when you got a law firm who's handling a bunch of divorce cases and other cases, and they call you every week saying, hey, I got 10 of them for you to serve, and a case for you to work on, you get you about 5 or 10 of those, and that's enough to keep you busy as a
yeah, that's where it's at.
So I wouldn't get my paralegal training because I wanted to, I'm already a Fed, so I knew the language, but I wanted to give the lawyers the idea that this guy understands the law and what we do a little bit. So I went and got paralegal training, and put that on my site. And that's actually been opening some doors for me. And then I sent my brother to do the same thing because he's part of my firm. And
they really love the phrase court ready documentation.
Yep. And when you understand it, it helps them.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about something. So we are martial artists. We've been knowing each other. We met through ninjutsu. I'll just say ninjutsu for folks who are not into Bujinkan and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So that's how we met. And man, it's been years now, Jack.
08 or 09, I think. Yeah. Wow. 07 maybe.
Wow, it's been that long. We've grown old together.
And our group was like maybe 100 or 150 people, and then we built it up to over 4,000 now.
Yeah, so I can't thank you enough for that, because I was just kind of lingering along. When you came, it just took off, and still there's 10 or 15 people want to join every day, and that's the ones that you don't ban with the ban hammer and have to get rid of them for whatever stupidness they're doing.
I mean, some people try and come in with sock puppet accounts, and we know from our history and managing that group that we can't tolerate those guys, because they're generally coming in to to cause some kind of trouble. Internecine warfare between the ninja clans.
Yep.
And it sounds silly out there, people, but it's
but it happens.
Yeah,
a lot of politics involved in this in the ninjutsu community. And break-offs and belt ranking arguments and all that. But here's what I want to talk about. So almost everybody I've spoken to so far had a martial arts background. So what do you think about, and since you haven't been in law enforcement, a lot of these guys are law enforcement, you're a PI. What do you think about PI? Two things, needing and having martial arts training, and does your particular training help you? And number two, the need for a firearm in this work. So let's start with the martial arts.
Yes.
And why do you think so? Do you actually run?
If I had to choose any of them, and if I was somebody who was trying to cut to the chase, I would be studying international combat Hapkido,
which both of us have studied, and I have a black belt in.
Both have
you have a black belt in that as well, right?
I don't. I'm bumping up against brown. I just
So
it's kind of fallen by the wayside. I got into other things,
and that's why I chose that one, Jack. It was practical for me in law enforcement work, versus me taekwondo kicking somebody in the head or trying to.
And with my, I'm currently a blue belt in that, which is, I don't know, 4 steps from black or something like that. But that level of combat Hapkido enabled me to dance with like high black belts in Aikido, high black belts in ninjutsu, high, people of all shapes and flavors, army combatives people. The combat Hapkido is really a program and a product and a style that I put myself behind 100%.
One thing I like about it is that, it's a watered down, I won't say watered down. I was taking traditional Hapkido, they say 3,000 moves. When I did Hapkido, it was 200 to 250 moves, right? But it was moves that you really would use and was practical. Most of them anyway. Yeah. There's a couple that you might not want to, but most of them were practical. So you do feel that a PI, especially out there by yourself, not being able to call for a backup.
If they don't have combat Hapkido, I'd take Krav Maga.
But you do recommend martial arts training?
Absolutely.
Now, what about a need? Now, your area might be different, but what about a need for a firearm to be armed? All my new guys want to be able to carry. So what's your thoughts on having to carry in this field?
If they've taken the proper coursework and have fulfilled all the requirements, I can't argue with their desire to carry. It's the USA, baby. In terms of how it applies to our job, I haven't had to draw my pistol on people. But
hold on one second. I'm sorry.
I'm reminding you.
Alexa, stop. I'm gonna cut that part out, but go ahead. Again, I'm sorry. You're talking about the guns and the carry?
Yeah, I'm saying that if you have the ability to carry and they don't tell you not to carry, then I would carry.
And
I've only had to put my hand on my pistol once, and that was from a guy who came running at me with a big old Crocodile Dundee knife. And I almost perforated him. I said, take one more step and I'm going to perforate you. And that stopped him. He's like, what does perforate mean? And then he realized it. Yeah. And then he said, he backed up, went back inside, dropped the knife inside, then came back out without the knife.
You probably thought perforating him was even worse than shooting him.
Yeah.
I don't know what that term is. He might have a laser or something.
Like it just sometimes, you're mentioning martial arts, and the ninjutsu mindset really helps, or larger than that, ninpo mindset in terms of the problem solving and trying to solve a problem before the problem knows it's a problem kind of thing.
Yes.
For diffusing something with humor, or whatever might come to it at that moment. But as it turns out, that guy had just moved into that apartment. The papers I was serving were to a criminal, so I was on high alert anyways.
Yeah.
Because but so like this is like a Friday or something. I'm there. It's like the 12th, and on the 8th, the guy I was looking for had moved out. This guy moved in on the 8th, like on the day the other guy disappeared, and ever since that time, people have been beating on his door, from street collectors to corporate collectors to process servers to old friends, to whatever. The guy must have been dealing or something, because this guy, the old tenant who's gone now, this new guy, the guy who came out with the big knife, hadn't been able to sleep in 4 days because people were banging on the door at all hours of the day and night.
He just had enough, you know?
Yeah.
So I want to go back to what you said about ninpo. I know people don't understand ninjutsu and all that. A lot of them think it's crap and the movie ninjutsu and all that. But there's so many things we learn that could be applied to this business about intelligence gathering, you know, going into the feeling, sensing when you go into a bad situation and you like, this doesn't feel right. I won't get to all the words we use for it, but you have your feeling, your intuition tells you this is a bad
Westerners
situation.
just call it your gut instinct.
Yeah, your gut instinct. So I mean, all that, even the regular martial art training helps build that, you know, in some instances. That
Sometimes they don't tell our kids what the kids are learning when they're learning a basic meditation exercise, or they're learning how to breathe properly, or learning how to basically, without getting terribly esoteric, like if you put your tongue on the back of your teeth at the back of your mouth, it completes a internal circuit within your body. And if you have that in place while you're meditating, you can. Anyways, I was talking about how even like general, you know, basic martial arts teaches breathing exercises and things like that. And while they're healthy and they help you with your cardio and all that, they also have another deeper purpose, which is to, in my opinion, is to assist you in, you know, broadening your intuition, basically. And you know, that being said, you know, ninjutsu and ninpo specifically have a lot of training that has to do with mental energies and meditation and things like that, to enable you to be a better warrior when you come into combat, or just a better human being as you're like walking around just trying to have a good life. So,
well, let me tie that to what we do then, because you said a better human being, better warrior. So how do you think it has helped you, if it has helped you at all, in this choice of career?
Well, what a lot of people
not just
don't know
fighting
about,
in combat.
yeah,
But
what a lot of people don't know about ninjutsu is that, you know, is comprised of many different roles that would be necessary for any type of, you know, conflict, or like I was saying, like just life. Like, you know, some people were specifically tasked with codes and code breaking, or other people were chemists making poisons and explosives and things, and other people had to do with the intelligence side of things, listening, eavesdropping. And not everybody who was a ninja was you know, a tree hopping, you know, shuriken throwing assassin.
And what about the part with a ninja? You're better with the terms than me. I don't remember a lot of them, but disguises and blending into your
Yeah, of course we need that. A lot of people, like, a modern concept in that way is the gray man sort of concept, to be able to melt into the crowd as opposed to standing out with a red hat on, for instance. But in traditional ninjutsu, there were a bunch of different roles that were just kind of like standard for everybody to know how to segue into, or to change into, like either the traveling monk, or the hobo, or the, you know, a peasant, or what have you. And in today's day and age, when we see, you know, let's say like, you know, stateside federal eavesdropping, like the classic is the lineman up on the telephone pole trying to look like he's you know, working on the capacitors or something, when he's eavesdropping on your or that person's phone line.
So I know this is not a ninpo course, but as you see, those skills are directly usable for doing surveillance, or we're following someone, or we're, like you said, sitting on a static post or something like that. And I know this is not a ninjutsu course, but I mean, since you brought this, it's kind of interesting that a lot of people out there practice the old traditional, you know, using a sword, using ninja weapons and all that. But Jack, and I never asked you about this, but if you looked at ninjutsu now, those guys wouldn't be doing, if they were still around practicing that, they wouldn't be practicing with swords and things like that. They'd be practicing with the modern weapons, with, you know, Uzi.
Yeah, probably, you know, a short barrel
that was a
automatic
tool.
rifle.
Yeah,
And,
those were the tools of that
about a
time, and they
10-inch
mastered
a
them.
10-inch fixed blade knife and
Exactly.
a Glock, or if they don't like Glocks, it would be a SIG maybe.
I think that's what a lot of ninja wannabes miss. They want to study that stuff, but the ninja did those things because that was the tools of their time. They would be using the tools of our time. I liken them to being SEALs or being, some other special forces unit. They used the SEALs they were the special forces back then.
I enjoy that there's a discipline and a beauty to using something like a naginata, which is a Japanese term for a halberd, basically. But I'm not going to be using any of that sort of thing as long as I've got rounds.
You got to break them one by your car.
Or my enemy's got rounds.
Yeah, you got that in your car. You can put it together real quick and do your thing.
Yeah. Hold on a moment. I need to get my 12-foot naginata together before we go.
Exactly. So I want to go back to your training for a minute. So down in Georgia, you go through about 110-hour course, you said. So what kind of things did you take in your? We have here in Maryland, you don't need a course. In Virginia, you go through a 1 week, 40-hour course. So what kind of things did you do in your particular course?
Well, to get to the PI is 110 hours. I think the a security officer's 30 hours, and then an armed security officer, pistol certification course is another 40 hours if you want that, or something. I don't remember the exact distribution, but not all those 110 were the PI course, but there's precursors to the PI course in Georgia, so it effectively adds up to 110 hours.
So in your state, you got to go through through security training, be a licensed security officer to move on to PI.
Right.
Okay, a lot don't do that. All right, so how do you continue to learn and stay up on your craft as far as PI is concerned?
Well, I mean, it's important to be in touch with people like yourself and hear about some of their adventures and problems and or solutions. And it's also pretty cool to be able to network via LinkedIn. There's a lot of PIs on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
And not everybody is willing to travel or what have you. So there's a lot of referral business going on with PIs.
Yeah, and
back scratching and favors and markers and things.
Internet has changed the game, man. Do you read up on interviewing and interrogation? Do you do a lot of interviews as part of yours? And
somewhat. More of mine have been kind of undercover sort of interrogations, but I do know that there's a lot of PIs around here that work for insurance company SIU units and things like that, and they're the ones that get sent out to places to talk to people about why their house keeps burning down after they've been to the furniture store.
Yeah, okay. Something you probably not even interested in yourself, that kind of.
Not as much. I'd prefer to kind of do what I'm doing. I like the fidelity verifications. That's pretty good and safe. I like doing process service, and I only get attacked once every 6 months, so it's not that bad.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things I know you do follow the ninja tradition and things like that. So I think what you do is more along the lines with what you're interested in, your skills, and keeping your skills sharp. I would really consider you the modern day ninja, not out doing assassinations or anything like that, of course, and taking people out that we know of. But I mean, I know you travel, you stay up on it, and you actually use these skills to do the job that you do. So
it's really been important for me to recently, specifically the OSINT has really come into play, because I like letting my fingers do the walking so my feet don't have to.
Yep.
Work smart. And essentially in the legal world, you should let your fingers do the fighting so your hands don't have to as well. Exactly. So that sort of philosophy can carry across what we're doing and kind of manage all facets of our challenges.
Plus, we're getting older, Jack, and I don't want to keep rolling around with people in real life. I do that in the dojo, but not in real life. I don't want to fight too much at 57 years old now.
Jackie don't roll.
Don't roll. So what is one thing you wish, what is one thing you wish you known when you began your career? And I know it wasn't that long ago that you know now, because you've come a long way since I knew when you started this and what you're doing now. So what was one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
I wish I would have known how much fun it really is. I
That's
should
nice
have
to
done it many years earlier, and I would have been, somewhat happier for
Mhm.
a long time.
I like
And it's funny how the martial and meditational kinds of things have helped me to be good at what I'm doing from a PI standpoint. But holistically, I was kind of missing it. I was
Mhm.
missing chasing people for a
Mhm.
while, and I liked training for fighting and for avoiding fighting and
Yep.
everything in between. But at the same time, the real fun of it is chasing people and using your brain to
Yeah.
get to where somebody's going to be and
Mhm.
get whatever is your purpose fulfilled.
And I guess for somebody like you, even a surveillance wouldn't be as bad because you can use that as meditation time. Not where you're not
Somewhat
focusing, but I mean, it makes it like more.
counting raindrops on the windshield.
Yeah. And what is one common myth about your profession that you would like to debunk? Well, before you answer that question, I love that you said that you enjoy it, because you have a lot of people out there say, well, really think about whether you want to be a PI, because it has this boring time. It's not like Magnum PI and Tom Selleck. It's mostly boring with a little bit of action. So I'm glad to hear somebody say, hey, it can't be as fun as you want it to be. Like you can choose surveillances, undercover, and all that, or you can choose to be a insurance guy. The guy who goes and do insurance. Now I can do workman comp and watch people all day and take pictures of folks the back is supposed to be broken, but they're lifting their kids and all that. I mean, you can make it a fun job, or you can make it a boring job. So I like that.
True that.
So what would you debunk?
A lot of people feel that because of Hollywood, that the PIs are sleazy
Mm-hmm.
and like alcoholic ex-cops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's just what the movies show us. Like
it's funny. The movie
Mickey Rourke got kicked off the force, and
That's
now
what I was
he's an
gonna say.
alcoholic private investigator.
Yeah. Or
Sleaze bag.
John Shaft takes his badge and does a shuriken throw at the judge and lodges it in the wall, and it goes to be a PI. It's usually the guys that got kicked off the force or something,
Shaft.
John Shaft.
Shut your mouth.
I was stationed up in Michigan. I was the only black officer in all the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, except for one guy who's a meter maid. So they started calling me Shaft. And let me tell you, Jack, I started using that. I started wearing turtlenecks and jackets all the time. I would show up in the meeting.
Why not?
Nonchalant, tough black guy, Shaft guy.
I'm sick and tired of all these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane.
Yeah, I played the role for about a year and a half. They brought it up, I played it. So what advice would you give to somebody who want to enter this field, want to become a private eye?
Make a bunch of phone calls and talk to people, and don't hang around with people that you don't like.
Well, when you say that, I mean make phone calls and talk to people about the career to make sure it's for you, or what do you mean?
Oh, sure, or just call a bunch of PIs and just
okay. And then
say you're looking for work.
What you mean? I'm in probably 25 PI groups on Facebook. Some good, some not. And you said there's a lot on LinkedIn that I haven't joined yet, so I'm going to join those. So I guess joining those, learning from folks like you and I.
Yeah, I mean, networking is really is pretty paramount.
Yep, I've got a lot of work through networking. People call me from New Jersey, New York to do something in DC for them.
And also, sharpen your electronic skills.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's deep web, dark web,
mm-hmm.
Trying to get information on people, trying to figure out where they're at. I mean, it really makes your footwork easier when you do that finger work first.
Now, being an advanced martial artist, do you do any executive protection or any protection work as part of your firm on the side?
Not really.
Okay.
It hasn't come into play.
Okay. Do you want to do anything like that? Executive protection?
It's been offered. For instance, one of my ideas was to do armed security Christmas shopping, but nobody took me up on it.
Oh, no. Well,
I didn't market that effectively.
Well, I figured being in Atlanta, though, it might be work for you doing executive protection for some of the Fortune 500 or for the entertainers and things like that. Have you looked into that at all?
Somewhat, but I've just been busy enough with what I've been doing right now.
You got the kids and stuff like that.
I would like to expand into that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, here's a question for you. What's your biggest failure and what did you learn from it? And I mean, I'm talking job. Well, I don't have to be in life or anything like that. But in this field.
I had that argument with my dad. We never talked again after that.
Oh, is that so? Okay.
Would you ever want to
just what
don't you talk about my mama like that?
It's just what it is. Yes, but
in terms of in terms of a failure, I guess,
or a challenge.
One time I sort of had a failure because I was caught in a bad position.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was that the OSINT wasn't good enough.
Was that?
It was when I was doing process serving, and what I didn't know was that I was server 6,
mm-hmm.
and that 5 people had been unsuccessful
mm-hmm.
with 3 tries apiece
mm-hmm.
on this particular person.
Mm-hmm.
But in the summertime down here, I do kind of dress like Magnum. I just wear some cargo shorts, flip-flops, and a Hawaiian shirt. So it does not look like I look like your neighbor if you're like in one of these neighborhoods where I live.
But do you have the car?
I came, huh?
But do you drive the car?
He didn't see the car. So I was just at this glass front door, and the guy came to the glass front door. I identified him by his face from the,
mm-hmm.
Social media stuff, and gave him a mat service. Basically, I see who you are. You're telling me you're not who you are. I know who you are. You're
mm-hmm.
served. Bye-bye. So I dropped it's about 2 inches of paper on this guy. Like, it was a bad
mm-hmm.
one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I basically walked back to my vehicle. And as I did, he comes out, picks up the documents, starts chasing me down his sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
And as I sit in my driver's seat, he steps inside my open driver door and starts abusing me and trying to basically intimidate or what do you say, like make me react in a violent manner towards him. So he's like spitting on me, screaming all kinds of horrible things at me. And then the security guard, this is in like a million, all the houses in this one development are like millions up to tens of millions of dollars. So it's a very expensive area. There's a security guard from the HOA there, and he's trying to calm the situation. So as he's talking to the homeowner steps out of my driver door, so I close it. And as he notices that, he starts running around my GMC, opening up all the other doors, screaming at me. So as I started closing all the doors, as he continues to run around the vehicle, I finally got all the doors closed, and then locked them back down his driveway. He's chasing me down the driveway, throws the papers through the open window of my driver's side, and I threw them back at him. And then I exited that property really quickly, and as I did, I struck the security guy's vehicle because he parked across the street down at the bottom of the driveway of this house, and the guy's running after me with his hand on his waistband, and I'm thinking he's gonna take a shot at me. So I just went in reverse and GTF 00H. And as it turns out, I was armed that day, but it was in my center console because my Glock was so new that I didn't have a holster for it. I picked it up the day before or something.
Well, it's probably
I also had
I
also had a baton in the driver door, but he was between me and my baton. Also had a can of, bug spray there that I could have given him a good dose of as well. But the problem was that I got myself into a situation where he got into my circle, and although we didn't get physically violent with one another, it was as close as you could get without doing it. But if I'd reached for any of my countermeasures, he was so close that we would have been in a struggle for them.
Well, that's where the combat Hapkido would have come into play.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. I'll say that I know how skilled you are in the martial arts. So it was probably good that you had martial arts training to keep from doing what most of us would have done with that guy. You can smack me in my face, you can throw me to the ground. If you spit on me, we got to fight. So your discipline probably held you back from actually hurting that guy and ended up arrested or in court or something like that. So that was good on you.
Well, I kept him on video, and then later on, my boss went and served him with a warrant from the magistrate court for false imprisonment, like assault with bodily fluids, all kinds of stuff. I took this guy to court, and as I was sitting in court on the day of court, I'm there in a suit and tie. This guy comes up to me and he says, "Excuse me, are you Mr. Williams's attorney?" And I looked up at him and I said, "No, but I'm Mr. Williams. What can I do for you?" You should have seen this guy's face. He was like, "Oh shit, we're in some trouble."
Yeah, exactly. Because they probably.
So later on, he comes to me and he says, "Hey, the police tell me that you have a video of this encounter. Would you mind if I look at it before we go into court? And can I show it to my client?" And so I say, "Sure." So I sent him the video. He comes back a few minutes later and says, "My client would very much prefer that this not be shown to any judge."
So let's drop this.
So let's just drop this. And so we started sliding the napkin around a little bit and got to a place where I was properly compensated for my problem and for the damage to my vehicle and a little bit of emotional trauma.
I wanted to ask you about that, and I'm glad you brought it up. So when you do your process serving, you do wear a camera for most of yours, all of yours?
I don't have a separate camera. Sometimes a lot of times I wear my favorite jacket or a favorite shirt or something, and my phone goes perfectly into my breast pocket.
Okay.
And it gets me a pretty good view.
Do you record them all?
Other times, if I know that it's going to be a bad one, I'll wear some glasses, and they look a little goofy, but they're very effective. Yeah.
Right. I want people to know who's watching this that I recommend, and in my process of recording, I recommend recording because you don't know when a situation like this is going to happen, and you don't want to be looking for a camera or trying to get your
And
phone.
it's a write-off too. I mean, if you got the cash flow, I'd buy that vest that's got the pinhole camera on it, and that's what I'll be wearing. Like the next time I get a paycheck that's over, a couple grand, I can invest in something like that.
Well, right now,
but it's always really important as a PI. You got to continually invest in equipment and upgrades and books and ongoing education to just keep things going.
I was looking for some of my equipment I had sitting next to me. I was going, oh yeah, like this right here is one of my GPS for planning in the car. I put this in, and I can turn it on. I have an app. I turn on the app, and I'm going to track the car, and I can see everywhere that the person is going with this here.
Is that one a bouncy?
This is let me see who makes this one. I don't remember. I got
Bouncy's a pretty cool app. And
oh, you mean the app? No, SpyTech. SpyTech is the app. So I use SpyTech. This one I still had the plastic on it because I have 4 or 5 of these. I have some voice activated little recorders that I wear, but I wear an $85 one that I bought from Amazon that I can just put on my shirt or in a pocket, and it records everything that way. So it works out pretty cool. But I want you all to know, I recommend recording like he does because you run into a situation like he did. Now, another thing I want to bring up, you mentioned something, Jack, about you were like the 6th person that was serving this guy, and it was like 5 fails. Were you told ahead of time that it had been tried 5 other times? No. Did you ask?
Pardon me? Did
you ask the people that he'd been served before?
Generally, we don't get problems like that. That was a 1 in 100 or 1-200 where we really have a problem case.
Because one of the things I have in my course is people should ask, has this person been served before, or have you attempted to serve this person before? Because you'll find out, well, yeah, we tried 9 times. Like, okay, I need to charge you for a hard serve. This is not my regular fee. This is a hard serve, so I'm going to do that. Yeah. All right, so
I didn't charge our company extra for that particular incident, but I did depend upon my boss to show up down at court with me, as well as the security guard who was there that day also came as a favorable witness for me. Oh, so this guy showed up expecting that he was going to be able to argue, hey, well, I'm a millionaire, I live in this place, and this guy's a piece of shit. Yet he had no character witnesses or anybody, but I had, the security guard that was there. I had my boss who had served him, as well as one of my friends is a DA, and he was standing next to me when this other guy's lawyer came up to us, and he's like, "Oh, are you Mr. Williams's lawyer?" And he's like, "No, I'm just a DA friend of Mr. Williams. I'm just here to offer him advice." Yeah, the guy, you should have seen the faces, just like, all
suit and tie. Were they expecting a dirt bag processor to show up or something like that? And
Yeah, he was. He was expecting me to show up in my Hawaiian shirt and my thongs, but you know, sandals.
Yeah.
Thong sandals, everybody.
Yeah, you always say, I would say you and your thongs. That's too much information, Jack.
Thong.
All right, man. So this has been good because I like people to get the real feel for how the job is and the real feel for people who are in the job. So I do appreciate you coming on and spending some time with me to do that. If you could step into my shoes right now, what would you have asked yourself that I might not have asked? What's some interesting thing that you would like folks to know or you would have asked yourself? It could be about NIMPO. It could be about this job. Well, those two things.
Well, okay. What would be the most important principle that works throughout martial arts and PI work, or
I like
whatever we're going against? And that brings me back to lessons from one of my teachers, where he said that, you know, there's basically three legs to the stool that a human body relies on to be effective. And, you know, one is breath, and one is balance, and the other is vision. And dependent upon the situation, you take one or all those away from someone else during a confrontation. And like a target that we're chasing, you know, you can kind of have metaphorically align those three things with their life. Like one of those legs might be their social media you know, exposure, and the other leg might be their criminal record, and the third leg might be their extended family or something like that. I don't know. You know, a lot of different problems can be handled depending upon how we parse them, divide them up into circles, so that we get that Venn diagram, you know, that part in the middle that's where the meat of the issue is at.
You know, you brought up, so I do want to ask you another question, because I've been doing this for like 40 years. And back in the old days, we didn't have social media. And you've been doing this for a couple of years, but you also work with social media in some of your other jobs that you have, Mortgage World and all that. But what do you think, how has social media helped you to be a private investigator? Easier? How do you think it's affected your job as a private investigator?
Oh, it's crucial right now. I do it for almost every case that involves, you know, a person, I guess, as well as you know, corporations. We use if you consider the, you know, Department of State website or whatever to be part of social media, or we could expand social to electronic media, and then I mean it's basically could be as much as 40, 50, 60% of the job.
Man, it would have been so much easier 30 years ago when I was doing it as an agent, and it has made, I mean, it's like you wonder.
Oh, the old cliche about the guy going around having to pay somebody $20, you know, give the bartender $100 to find out.
Yep. And Gumshoe was really wearing out your shoes, going door to door, knocking on doors and all that. Well, now I can almost do a full investigation sitting right here, and then go out and do a few things that we have to do in the street surveillance, maybe some interviews. You know, I can even do an interview like this, but a lot of them don't want you to do an interview this way, you know. Yeah. But I mean, you could if you needed to. I love that you said that COVID didn't stop your business at all. A lot of business shut down. Our business picked up because unfortunately people getting divorced and things like that because of it, and there's more work for us. Yeah. All right, so I got another question. And this is the last thing. Again, I really appreciate you being there. You know, we've known each other for a long time, but we never really
happy to be here, bro.
Like this, you know. If people want to connect with your firm or with you, is there a way that folks can reach you? And I'll put it down below also, but is there ways that folks can reach you professionally, or if they have a martial art question for you?
Sure. My email address is northgeorgiapiguy@gmail.com. So the word north and then GAPI guy, GUI @gmail.com.
All right.
And the company I work for is called Phoenix Legal Investigations LLC, Phoenix. Okay. And if you look us up, we're the only one in Atlanta named Phoenix Legal. It's pretty easy to find.
And I'm going to put that down below so people can just click on it too. I'll put a link to your site. So Jack, man, thank you very much. I'll see you in our group. I'll see you in our group because we're admins together. He helps me with the group and everything.
Yep.
And hey, man, I hope you have a successful year. Enjoy your year. And again, thank you for this interview.
We will have a successful year, Derek. And thank you for your service and your friendship. I appreciate you.
You as well, man. All right.
Take care, brother.
Well, that's it for this video, folks. If you want to learn more about private investigation or become a private investigator, check out my Private Investigator career course at privateinvestigationsacademy.com. It is jam-packed with 35 lessons on everything you need to possibly know to be a private investigator. And by the way, when you get my course, you also get a free vacation to one of 51 available locations, and I have a 3-payment plan available. So again, check out my PI career course at privateinvestigationsacademy.com. I'll see you on the next video.